Hello again, everybody. Today we are going to be discussing conditional clauses in English. Now, conditionals are a type of sentence which expresses something that for sure will happen or may happen in the present or future, or events that did not happen in the past. If here is a common conditional linking word which indicates that something may happen, but we have a few others. Words like unless or if not, as well as even if, or phrases like when, if something will definitely happen, and provided or provided that. They are the same. That is optional. So, to shed some light on how we use the conditional structure in English, let's look at some examples. The first example, if you heat water, it boils. Or, water boils if you heat it. It, or water here, it boils is what we call the main clause. And as such, it can go in different places in the sentence. But there are a couple rules that we need to remember if we're talking about main clauses. If the conditional clause, a form of subordinate clause, if the conditional clause comes first, we need a comma to separate it from the main clause. If you heat water, comma, it boils. However, if the conditional clause comes at the end of the sentence, a comma is not required. Water boils if you heat it, no comma. By the way, we will replace if with when if we are 100% certain this action will definitely happen. For example, when you heat water, it boils. We know that if we heat water enough, it is going to boil, so we can use when. Now, depending on whether or not the action is real or unreal, and depending on the likelihood or the possibility that an event will actually happen, we have 4 different kinds of conditionals that we can use. The first kind of conditional, the zero conditional, is the easiest. And let's look at some examples of this. When it rains, Jenny stays at home. Or, like before, if you heat water, it boils. If you eat too much, you get fat. Or, if you touch a hot oven, you get burned. The following grammar structure is how we use the zero conditional. It will begin with if, and then a statement in the present simple tense, and the main clause will also be in the present simple tense. We use this structure for things that are absolutely 100% true every time, for rules that are never, ever, ever, ever broken. Now, we use the first conditional, on the other hand, to talk about events that are likely to happen in the near future or in the present. And let's look at some examples of the first conditional. If I meet Alice, I will give your best regards to her. You will miss the train if you don't leave now. We won't go on the picnic tomorrow if it rains. If you master English grammar, you'll pass the exam. If you forget to phone her, she'll be angry. And finally, if you're late, please let me know. The following grammar structure is the way that we use the first conditional sentence. Just like in the zero conditional, we use if and then the present tense. However, we follow it with will and the bare infinitive or the imperative structure. So, to recap, the zero and the first conditional are used to express real conditions which will happen in the future or which happen in the present reliably. However, to discuss things that are unreal or untrue in the present, we can use the second conditional. And to make the second conditional, well, first let's look at some examples. Using the second conditional, if I were you, I would not let him go. If we left in time, we wouldn't miss the train. If I became president, I would strengthen the educational system. In this case, being said by a student, versus if I become president, I will carry out lots of reforms, if said by a candidate during an election campaign. More, if people were more sensible, they would take much more care of the environment. And another, I would go out with you today if I were not so busy. Pay attention that after if, we use were instead of was. Now, the grammatical structure of the second conditional is as follows. If, followed by the past simple or the past continuous, comma, followed by would, could, might, and the bare infinitive. So in this case, it will look very, very similar to the first conditional, except that in the second clause, your wills will change to woulds. Now, we use would and could, etc., and the past tenses to express the distance between what we are talking about and reality. Now, with third conditionals, we're talking about imaginary situations, and with these, we are expressing some kind of regret or criticism about something that happened in the past. Let's turn to some examples. If they would have informed us about their visit, we would have prepared. Or, we would have gone to the park if it had not been raining yesterday. If John had studied better, he would have passed the exam. If I had had enough time yesterday, I would have gone to the cinema with you. And remember, had may sound strange, but it's okay. And a fifth example, if the mom had not been so tired, she would have noticed what was happening. Now, the grammatical structure of the third conditional is the following. If, followed by the past perfect tense, combined with would, could, or might, with have and the past participle of the main verb. We've already mentioned that instead of if, there are also other conjunctions which can be used in conditional sentences. One such is unless. So let's look at some examples with unless and how it works with if and how it compares to if. First, if you eat much, you will get fat. Or, unless you eat less, you will get fat. Here it means if not, or if you don't. Another example, unless you stop making that noise, I'll leave you. Using if, I'll leave you if you don't stop making that noise. Now, another word we can use is provided or providing that. And it means if, but only if. For example, I will go out provided you go too. Or he can lend you his video camera provided that you are careful with it. Now, sometimes with conditional sentences, especially for unreal conditional sentences, we will need to talk about multiple tenses at once. And this is okay. We use what are called mixed conditionals to do it. And for the mixed conditional, you may begin the sentence in the second conditional with a main clause in the third conditional, or vice versa. Your if clause can use the third conditional, and your main clause can use the second conditional. Let's look at some examples of what this looks like in practice. If I had studied English at school, I would have better career opportunities today. Here, we're beginning in the past, if I had done something, and we're going to the present, I would be now. Next, if Julia had saved money, she would go to Tokyo with us next Friday. Here again, we're beginning in the past, if Julia had saved money, and going to the future, talking about next week. Next, if John were rich, he would have bought that car at the exhibition yesterday. Now here, I'm starting in the present tense, if John were rich right now. But I'm talking about what he would have done in the past, and that's okay. And finally, if her parents were not coming back next weekend and would have a party. Here, I'm beginning talking about the future, and I'm ending talking about the present. If you're doing this, just remember to use the correct conditional, either the second or the third, to do this. Now, let's summarize the grammar rules following conditionals by looking at these tables. In the zero conditional, we use if combined with the present simple tense and the main clause in the present simple tense to talk about something that is always 100% true. Universal truths, scientific experiments, just like if you eat water, it boils. Now, the first conditional, if with the present tense followed by will with the bare infinitive or the imperative, we use to talk about real actions that are likely to happen in the near future or in the present. For example, if I meet Alice, I will give your best regards to her. Or, if you are late, please let me know. These are both used to discuss real situations. And remember, if we want to discuss unreal situations, we use the second or the third conditional. The second conditional, formed by using if, followed by the past simple or the past continuous tense, and then a main phrase using would, could, or might, and the bare infinitive, is used to talk about the present where something is unreal, or something that is unlikely to happen in the future. If I were you, I would not let him go. Or, if we left in time, we would not miss the train. And finally, the third conditional formed by using if with the past perfect, and then a main phrase using would, could, or might, and have with the past participle of the main verb, is used to talk about imaginary situations that could have or could have not happened in the past, and we're expressing some kind of regret or criticism. We would have gone to the park if it had not been raining yesterday. Or if John had studied better, he would have passed the exam. And remember, we can mix these second and third conditionals, for example, using if followed by a past perfect clause, then would with the bare infinitive, or if followed by past simple, and then would followed by the past perfect, to talk about either A, unreal past conditions and the result in the present, or B, unreal present conditions and the probable result in the past. If I had studied English at school, I would have better career opportunities today, moving from past to present. Or you can use if with the past simple, followed by would, plus have and the past participle of the main verb in the main clause. If John were rich, he would have bought that car at the exhibition yesterday. So that's about all for conditional statements today. I hope none of this was too confusing. I think you're all pretty bright. You'll do just fine with it. Be sure to review all of these because this is one of the most commonly used structures in English, and we use this to talk about so many things that you should really know how to use it. So, review these, review the tables, know all of it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.